What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, let's move on to our mailbag. I think Dre needs to play the 5 most of the season. When he's paired with Trace or Loon, there's not enough shooting on the court. Maybe in 3-guard lineups with Steph, Hield, and whoever their third best shooter is, but you put Dre at the 5, and there's a lot of space for JK, Wiggs, Steph, and the other guard to operate. The Warriors season crumbled last year with Dre and Loon playing together without enough shooting. Too easy to double off them. Trace might pair a little better with Dre, given he's a lob threat, but it still gives 2 players defenders that defenders can ignore and focus on Steph. So we all agree that, and I think most Warriors fans agree, that Draymond at center is going to be their best look. There's no doubt. And they're going to close games with that. It'll be Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and then Steph, and whichever guard makes the most sense. Whether that's, Buddy Hield's red hot tonight, he's closing, or it's the Anthony Melton, or it's Brandon Podziemski, whoever it ends up being, they're going to do some combination of that, right? But it's about eating innings in the regular season. When you are smaller, you have to compensate with obsessive effort because you're constantly covering ground to make up for it, whether it's in transition or in rotation. But when you're big no matter what. And so the idea behind going big is you make it easier on a night in and night out basis for you to do your job. Because you don't have to cover as much ground when you're big. Just being big vertically, by just standing, you're able to get to more defensive rebounds. You're able to protect the rim a little bit better. You're able to absorb contact a little bit better. So that's the idea. It's about being big for the sake of eating innings over the course of 82 games, which I understand. Again, we all know that what they have to do when it comes down to winning time. But this is just about treating the 82-game season with the appropriate level of conservative nature to make sure that you have all your guys when you need them. And that I do understand. I do lean Trace Jackson-Davis over Kevon Looney just because I think Trace brings motor and I think he brings speed. And I think that gives them the ability to kind of convert defense into offense. And I do think this team is going to be able to force a lot of turnovers and get out on transition, especially with Draymond playing help side defense more this year as a 4-man. So I am curious to see how it all turns out, but I do understand why they have to go big to start the year. I genuinely cannot fathom how the Nuggets are above the Mavs. So let me just explain why I have the Nuggets above the Mavs. I just think the Nuggets are a more talented team. I think Jokic is slightly better than Luka. I do think Kyrie is slightly better than Jamal Murray. But I do think that Murray and Jokic complement each other a little bit better and have more pop as a 2-man game. So I'm going to give them the slight edge. After that, though, I think Gordon is a better player than PJ Washington. I think Michael Porter Jr. at this point in his career is a better player than Klay Thompson. I think the Nuggets will have a better defense than Dallas this year. I think Mike Malone is a better coach than Jason Kidd. So, I also think the Nuggets just present more matchup issues to teams because of the Jokic problem. So, I just think the Nuggets are a better basketball team. That's why I have the Nuggets over Dallas right now. This guy refused to explain how the Nuggets and Thunder beat Dallas and instead goes on about the Celtics, who they can only play in the finals. Denver ran into a matchup issue with Minnesota. And that was exacerbated by the fact that both KCP and Jamal Murray got hurt in the Lakers series. And the Nuggets were a bit worn down just by a long playoff run the year before, long season, hard series against the Lakers in the first round, right? They get worn down, they break down officially in that Minnesota series. Imagine that too. Your guards are how you navigate Minnesota's ball pressure. And both of them were dealing with bad wheels. And then KCP was an ankle and Jamal Murray was a calf. Just makes things harder, right? But here's the thing. They were still up 20 in Game 7. They just blew it, right? If they had survived, I would have picked them against Dallas because Dallas doesn't have a soul who can remotely guard Jokic, and Aaron Gordon is one of the best options in the league to throw at Luka Doncic. So, Oklahoma, and then as far as Oklahoma City goes, Oklahoma City was a free throw away from playing Dallas in Game 7 at home. They had a lob dunk to Chet that put them up by 1 heading into the final possession in Game 6 in Dallas. Dallas won fair and square. Luka made a play. PJ Washington got fouled. He made the free throws. Game over, right? But that was a very small margin. If Oklahoma City gets a stop on that last possession, we're heading to Oklahoma City for a Game 7 where they're favored. And they added this summer 2 additional role players that are high-level veterans that will help them on both ends of the floor and address specific needs for them. I think Oklahoma City would beat Dallas in a series this year. So there you go. Like I just didn't explain it in the last one, but like I think the Nuggets present more matchup issues for Boston. I would pick Denver over Dallas right now. I would pick Oklahoma City over Dallas right now. And I just gave you some of the basketball reasons why. There was an interview with Jason Kidd this week in which he talked about applying some triangle offense concepts with the Mavs after visiting Phil Jackson. He really specifically emphasized less dribbling and more quick passes instead of holding the ball as a key takeaway. Besides that, he also mentioned wanting someone other than Luka to bring the ball up and to have Luka attack from different areas on the court. Beat writers have speculated this might mean more mid-post and low-post touches for Luka, as well as more handoffs, since Kyrie and Luka ranked first and second among 57 players who ran at least 300 handoffs last year. Do you think these are things that are beneficial ways to improve the Dallas offense? As for defense, I think Dallas's potential woes have been a little overstated. Klay is no longer elite defensively, but he isn't below average or a cone. By the way, I know Mavs fans sound a little salty in the comments, but it's because it feels like everyone is underrating the moves we made and our chances just like last season. Hope you aren't too annoyed with the comments, Jason. Thanks for the breakout. Don't worry about the comments. I've been doing this for 2.5 years now. February 1st will be 3 years since I started with the volume. So I'm kind of used to it at this point. I've just basically learned that every fan base is mad all the time. Like literally every video up to this point has had fans complaining about where teams are ranked. So like it is what it is. Like go look at the Minnesota video or like the Milwaukee video. Like everyone's pissed off all the time. I'm kind of just used to it. Every fan base thinks their team gets unfair coverage. So I never take that sort of thing personally. Also, I know that for every one person who complains in the comments, there's 1,000 or so that actually watch the video and don't complain. So I try not to read too much into that. I do love the idea of having Luka start possessions off the ball and specifically coming off of handoffs. This is actually a 5-out concept. And this is an example of an easy 5-out concept they could add this year to kind of juice things up for them offensively. It saves wear and tear from ball pressure. There's just no reason to have Luka bring the ball up the floor against a guy who's going to turn him once or twice and make him make all those additional cuts. Over the course of a game, that's another 40, another 50 cuts that can wear a guy down. I'm not saying you don't have him bring the ball up at all, but I think it is helpful to have Luka start some possessions in the corner and then literally have the ball handler bring up the ball at the floor and then just run that like kind of 5-out delay action, like a Chicago action where like Kyrie brings the ball up the left wing, Luka's in the right corner, Klay Thompson is on the right wing. You have Kyrie bring it up the left wing, you dump it to Lively, who's trailing at the top of the key. Derek Lively turns towards the right corner. Klay Thompson pins down and screens for Luka. Luka then comes off of Klay and off the dribble handoff and comes downhill into the lane. It's the same type of reads that Luka makes in his ball screen, right? Like Lively's rolling off that dribble handoff, going to the rim for a dunk. Inevitably, by virtue of Chicago action, Klay Thompson is probably going to be open on a skip back, right? Like, I love involving Klay in screening actions with Luka as much as possible, but it's just a simple way to like save him wear and tear and ball pressure, have him attack with a little bit more of a complication. And once again, one of the things I talked about yesterday, remember, running action just makes it so that there's more likelihood that the defense will make a mistake. If you bring the ball up the floor and just run a ball screen, it all of a sudden just becomes entirely about Luka's superpowers. And we all know that Luka has great superpowers, but running offense is what forces defense to make lots of decisions, which can lead to more mistakes. Well, what I want to see is I want to see Luka's superpower combined with defenses making mistakes. That's what I want to see, because that's where I think you can squeeze a little bit more out of that sponge. So like, I think that makes a lot of sense. You can always default back to Luka ball at the end of possessions. You run some stuff, it doesn't work. Oh, there's 10 on the shot clock. Throw it to Luka, set a ball screen. Now we're playing, right? But like, I think just exploring more of those 5-out concepts will just help juice their offense a little bit. Might increase their pace a little bit too, because Luka tends to bring the ball up the floor a little slowly. Have someone else bring up the ball up the floor. There might be a little bit more pace to the offense. It's so fun to watch the Lakers actually draw plays instead of freestyling all season. So a couple things. The Lakers actually ran plenty of action last year. In fact, even though JJ Redick has added some stuff, those dribble weave concepts we were talking about in the Monday show, a lot of the stuff they ran in the first 2 preseason games were the same concepts that they were running last year. Some like post up split cut stuff and some like horn sets that they run. Like a lot of that was the same stuff they were running last year. The key is running action more frequently, which they have. And 2, adding complications and counters, which will take time. These are like little wrinkles that you add to sets both on and off the ball, depending on what a defense is doing to cover it, right? Those are things that take time, though, to implement. And then most importantly, overall attention to detail and accountability. So like, for instance, the one of the things that JJ Redick's been talking a lot about in his press conferences is screening. So like one of the things I talk about all the time is like, focusing on sets is important because they obviously bring value and all the things we talked about by promoting more mistakes from the defense, things along those lines, right? But like the most important thing is how well you actually run the set. Like if we run a basic ball screen, but my guard does a really good job of setting his man up for the screen by selling one way to then come back the other way, and I get a really good screen, like that's going to get me better offense than if we run a beautiful 5-out set, but no one fucking screens right. Like those are the little details that matter. Setting up your man for a screen, screening properly, actually coming off of that screen with power, like coming off with force. If you come off the screen soft, you're not going to engage the screen defender. There's all of these like little details that make sets effective. And that's the thing, like they can run the same shit they ran last year as long as they run it better with more attention to detail and more frequently. And so those are all these like little details that get like basketball at its very core is fundamental. If you like literally just run your lanes and transition really hard, make kick out passes when they're available and drive closeouts properly, you can get good shots just by playing drive and kick and transition push basketball. You can be successful, like we talked about in a spamming ball screens, if you're just really good with your details in the ball screens. Details matter. And so you have to coach details. You have to hold people accountable on details. You have to, that is the type of obsessiveness that every good basketball team has. All right, last one. At some point, this guy needs to be honest about the Lakers. Here are the facts. Lakers 2023-2024 season. Offense was not good. Play-in team swept first round. Offensive rating 116, 15th out of 30. Defensive rating 115, 16th out of 30. Net rating plus 0.06, 19th out of 30. Again, this is just a really dishonest way to characterize the Lakers season. Over the Lakers' last 46 games, they had the 4th best record in the league and the 3rd best offense. That's not just a stretch run. That's not just the end of the year when the best teams are preparing for the postseason and the bad teams are tanking. That's 46 games. That's 56% of the entire season. And that's not just stacking wins against bad teams. That's 17 wins against the top 10 in point differential teams, which is tied with Boston for the most in the NBA. And that's bracketed on the other end by them winning the in-season tournament. They were bad for less than a month. Now, here's the thing. A 3-10 stretch in a remarkably talented Western Conference will be very damaging. And that is what colored the Lakers the way they did. And that's why most of the casual fans who weren't watching them very closely didn't think they were very good. But they were very good in all of the games spanning that. Just again, you can't afford to go 3-10 out West. They won 47 games, though. Just so, look at that 3-10, right? That's 13 games. Let's say that they just go with their normal win percentage of the season. So let's say they go 7-6. That's less than their normal winning percentage of the season. Let's just say they go 7-6, so barely over 500 in that 3-10 stretch. Now they're a 51-win team. And again, during that stretch, they were actively trying to get their coach fired. Like pouting, not playing hard, leaking stuff to the press. It was an ugly stretch. I'm not debating that. But it was a 46-game stretch after that where they took off and were awesome. Not to mention the fact that it had a lot to do with the fact that they started using a lineup that never played before January. The lineup of Austin, D'Lo, Rui, Braun, and Anthony Davis, the one that carried them to that 46-game stretch, did not play at all in the first half of the season. Did not play. So here's the truth. They were bad for less than a month, but they were mostly awesome the majority of the season. Are the Lakers in the inner circle of contenders? No, they have too many flaws. But they absolutely belong in that next tier of teams. And I've been consistent about that. I picked the Denver Nuggets to beat the Lakers last year in the postseason. I don't have any delusions of grandeur with the Lakers. I think that they're another one of the good teams below the contender tier. But they have a really strong foundation in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So if they can hit on a trade, if they attack the season with the appropriate level of attention to detail, they can crack into that group potentially if some things go their way, which is the same thing that can be said about every other team that's in that tier.